having a life scholarship and being able to afford to go to college made me feel inspired to go.
When I got a life scholarship, it was such a relief.
I knew that I wanted to have an impact. Having a life scholarship through the SC Education Lottery was huge. It gave me the opportunity to make that impact right here at home.
The South Carolina Education Lottery. A better you, a better us, a better South Carolina. Visit sceducationlottery.com/betteryou.
Ready to make a real impact every day? Join the Active Day Home Care team and help clients maintain their independence in the comfort of their own homes. Make a difference in someone's life as you provide essential daily assistance and protect their health and happiness. Earn up to $20 an hour and enjoy additional perks like optional daily pay, 401k, paid time off, ongoing educational training, and more. Join a team that values care, compassion, and your professional growth. Visit activeday.com to apply.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/kidsandfamily. Just go to Indeed.com/kidsandfamily right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
Get ready to dive deep into one of the most gripping legal battles of our time. I'm your host, Jim Chapman, and today we're unraveling the high-stakes drama surrounding one of the music industry's most enigmatic figures, Sean Diddy Combs. In a case that has captivated millions, the courtroom has become a battleground for fame, fortune, and the dark secrets that lurk beneath the glittering surface of celebrity life. As the gavel comes down, we'll explore the allegations, the testimonies, and the shocking twists that could change the course of Diddy's legacy forever. Was this case merely a clash of lifestyles or something much more sinister? With each episode, I will bring you exclusive insights, analysis, and witness testimony accounts that will leave you on the edge of your seat. So buckle up as we embark on this thrilling ride through the trial of the century, where the stakes are high, the drama is real, and the truth is anything but certain. This is the trial of Sean Combs. Let's get started. Welcome back to the trial of Sean Combs. And look, I'm about to catch you up on everything. I'm going to catch you up with the testimony that occurred both Tuesday, June 17th, Wednesday, June 18th, Thursday, June 19th. There was no testimony because it was Juneteenth and court was not in session. And I'm going to catch you up on Friday's testimony as well. So when I'm done with this episode, we are going to be completely caught up. So on Tuesday, June 17th, Special Agent Delisa Penland with the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York, she continued her testimony. She walked the jury through records related to a September 2014 hotel stay in Los Angeles. The records included charges on Diddy's American Express card for a round-trip flight from New York City to Los Angeles for a man referred to as Dave, who we now know is an entertainer. On cross-examination, defense attorney Teeny Garagos, she questioned Penland on the list of individuals associated with meetings in the government's summary charge. She said there could have been other people present, but, quote, if I didn't have the evidence, their name is not on this chart. Garagos also asked Penland if she reviewed any materials indicating a meeting around New Year's Eve in 2016 or 2017, and Penland confirmed she did not. Penland also confirmed that all 5 of the explicit videos the jury watched in court yesterday were recovered from a Frank Black user profile on one of Cassie Ventura's devices. The videos are sealed because they're sexually explicit. So that was the update for Tuesday, and a very short update for Wednesday's testimony. And why is that so short? Well, a juror called in sick. Yes, that does happen. And of course, when this happens, they can't have court when they're missing a juror. So Wednesday's testimony was actually canceled. Apparently, this juror was having vertigo symptoms, which if you've ever had vertigo, that is no fun. And that brings us into the present time, which is the testimony for Friday, because as I said, Thursday, they did not have court. So here we are, Friday, June 20th. And before we get into it, the judge did state just prior to the jury entering the courtroom that this trial could go into the hands of the jury this upcoming week, which is quicker than I anticipated. So we will see. And Brendan Paul, a former assistant to Sean Combs, he was called to the stand, and prosecutor Christy Slavic is questioning Paul. Paul said he had worked as an assistant to Combs from late 2022 after graduating college and stopped working for Combs when he was arrested on March 25th of 2024 in a Miami airport. And I brought you that story way back in the Diddy saga series that I released. He said he was on his way to a family vacation with Combs when he was arrested for possession of cocaine. Quote, it was in my bag and it was for personal assistant duties. Paul said he was sweeping Combs' room and he grabbed the cocaine to put it somewhere else, but forgot to remove it from his own bag before leaving for that trip. He then testified about what he knew prior to working for Combs. Did he realize that this was going to be, I guess you could say, this type of job? And he said he didn't know that it was going to be somewhat tumultuous. He said he first heard about the opportunity to be Diddy's personal assistant from Eli Maroon, who was another assistant of Combs. Quote, he told me to get in, to get out. If you have a girlfriend, you might as well break up with her. You're never going to see your family. He went on to say he understood that Maroon was telling him that it was going to be a really tough job that required all of his attention. So Paul went on to say he interviewed for the position in fall of 2022, and that was at Sean Combs' Los Angeles home. He said before entering the home, he gave his ID to Combs security and he signed a non-disclosure agreement. He then met with Christina Coram and Frankie Santella, who was Combs' music manager, for about 20 minutes. Paul said he started working for Combs just a few days later. He said in his first few weeks on the job, he worked out of Combs' Los Angeles home and mainly received instructions from other assistants. Paul said he divided assistant duties with Combs' other personal assistants, and he said he helped handle Combs' travel logistics and packing, and he helped Combs with his fitness workouts, his meal plans, and music-related needs. Paul also said he would pack marijuana joints in Combs' garage. Paul said he typically worked between 80 and 100 hours a week, and he said he would usually work 4 to 6 days a week, but that he was always on call. His starting salary was $75,000 a year. And you know, before I go any further, it blows my mind. Combs wasn't paying these people shit. I can't find an assistant for that. It's unbelievable. $75,000 a year for 80 to 100 hours a week. Wrap your mind around that. He said he later got a raise to $100,000, and he testified he was paid by Combs Enterprises. Paul said he traveled frequently for work. He flew with Combs on his private jet 3 to 4 times, but he said he usually traveled separately so he could get in there early to set up his rooms. Quote, so when you walked in, everything was seamless and Combs had everything he needed. Paul said sometimes other employees like stylists and photographers would also travel early with him. And he said when he traveled for work, Combs' travel manager would book that travel. Paul said the longest period he worked without sleep was when they were in New York, releasing Combs' latest album. Paul stayed awake for about 3 days, although he took some naps in between. He said, I was young, so I was able to handle it. Paul testified he took prescription Adderall and the rare use of cocaine, he said. He said he did that to help keep himself awake and alert during his employment. He said he also smoked marijuana during his employment. He testified that his mission was to make sure Diddy was always happy. He said that Combs told his assistants they should operate like SEAL Team 6. Paul said Combs fired him 2 or 3 times, and he testified about one incident that stuck out in his memory. He said in late October or early November of 2023, he forgot Combs' Lululemon fanny pack when Combs wanted to go for a walk. He said that's when Combs told him, quote, I don't want to see your face, and call KK and tell her you're fired. Of course, KK refers to Christina Coram. Paul recalled that Combs' former chief of staff, Christina, told him to lay low. Soon after that, she sent Paul to set up Combs' London hotel room around Combs' birthday that year, and Combs never discussed the incident with him again. Paul also said it wasn't a thing to talk to human resources about any issues. He said if anyone had an issue, they either went to Combs or to Coram. He testified that he saw Combs use drugs, including cocaine, ketamine, ecstasy, and marijuana about once a month, but there were other times that he seemed high. The jury was then shown a photo that Paul took early in his employment of ecstasy in a powder form and ketamine and Molly that were dyed pink. He went on to say that Combs and another assistant would tell him to obtain drugs for Combs. He testified he would buy marijuana about every 2 months, paying $4,200 for 16 ounces. He said he purchased the marijuana from Philip Pines, one of Combs' previous assistants, and Paul said he bought other drugs for Combs fewer than 10 times. He testified he would sometimes pay about $300 to $500 for 1 to 2 grams of drugs. Other times he would pick up packages without paying for them himself. And he said on some occasions he would text a drug dealer and they would come to Combs' home to deliver the drugs. The jury then saw messages between Paul, a drug dealer, and another Combs assistant named Jonathan Perez, who we've heard from, right? This was from February of 2024. Paul testified that Perez put him in touch with the dealer to obtain drugs for Combs. Is it for you or Puff? The dealer asked in those text messages. Paul responded, Puff, but please don't disclose that. You can tell whoever it's for me. Paul said once he received drugs, he would give them directly to Combs or put them in the Gucci pouch where the drugs were stored. And he testified he would pick up prescription drugs for Combs at pharmacies under Combs' real name or the alias Frank Black, and that surprised me. How the hell can you pick up prescription drugs from a pharmacy using a fake name is beyond me, but Combs was able to pull that off. The jury saw messages Combs sent Paul on February 14th of 2024 asking him to get Xanax. Paul testified that Combs didn't have a prescription for Xanax and he wasn't able to obtain the drug. Paul said Combs and Christina Coram didn't really want him involved in Wild King nights for some reason, but he set up and cleaned up a few times while he worked for Combs, and Coram called them Wild King nights. And Paul said Jane was the only one he recalled that participated in Wild King nights during his tenure with Combs. Paul testified his understanding of Wild King nights to include partying, alcohol, sex, and drugs. He said the nights were at hotels during the beginning of his time with Combs, and he testified Combs stopped holding them at the hotels after Cassie's lawsuit. Paul testified that when he set up for a Wild King night, he would ensure the room had baby oil, alcohol, small toiletries, and extra sheets and towels. He said the assistant shared a list that included all the items needed to set up for those nights, and he said he often obtained supplies through Combs' property managers. He said if he paid for supplies with his personal credit card, he was reimbursed through Combs' financial personnel. Paul said he once provided Combs with $5,000 cash before a Wild King night, and he said he got the cash from security. He went on to testify that another assistant told him he once left cash in an envelope at the front desk of a hotel. Paul said Combs would sometimes contact him during a Wild King night via audio message or FaceTime. The jury was then shown a photo of outfits from a sex shop that Paul sent to Combs. Paul testified that Combs asked him to run by the store while he was with Jane, but Combs never responded after Paul sent a picture of those outfits. Brendan Paul cleaned up hotel rooms after Combs' Wild King nights about 3 or 4 times, he said. He went on to say the rooms were in disarray and he would put towels and sheets into a pile and throw out empty bottles of baby oil and liquor. Paul said he wore gloves during the cleanup for sanitary reasons. He's not as dumb as he sounds, right? One time, Paul saw a white powder he believed was drug residue. The jury then saw a photo of a hotel room, and it had sheets covering the furniture. Paul testified that he sent the photo to Combs' travel manager to give her a heads up that there might be a few damage charges. The jury then saw a selfie of Diddy, Christina Coram, and Brendan Paul on a private jet that was taken March 25th of 2024. This was before Paul was arrested for cocaine possession at the Miami Executive Airport. So they were about to take off on a flight to the Bahamas. They took this picture, and the next thing you know, he's getting arrested, and Combs and Coram flew off. Paul testified that he hasn't seen or spoken to Combs basically since that photo was taken. Now, Paul didn't tell law enforcement that the cocaine wasn't his that day. When the prosecutor asked Paul why he did not tell law enforcement the cocaine was Diddy's, he just said, quote, loyalty. Paul testified the charges against him related to the incident were dropped because he had a really good lawyer, and he was quoted as saying that. He said he's completed over 20 drug classes and submitted 2 random drug testing. And with that, the prosecution had no further questions, and the defense took over with attorney Brian Steele handling the questioning for the defense. Steele started his cross-examination of Brandon Paul by asking him about his background. And Steele here was trying to paint a picture of Paul's work ethic, and he confirmed that he worked hard. He said he strived for perfection. He said he was willing to work these long hours for Sean Combs, and he said he learned from the exposure he got to the music industry from Combs. He also confirmed that handling drugs was a minor part of all the work he did for Combs. And Brian Steele then asked him, quote, "You were not some drug mule, right?" And Paul responded, "Absolutely not." Paul said that he believed the drugs he obtained were just for Combs' personal use. Steele asked if Paul thought Wild King nights were also personal for Combs. And Paul testified, quote, "I considered it to be like an escape from his job," confirming he agreed that Combs' personal time was spent with Wild King nights. Paul went on to say he often speaks to Jane before and after Wild King nights during that time period, and he confirmed he never saw anything that made him think she was hesitant or not a willing participant in those Wild King nights. Steele then asked Paul about his arrest on March 25th of 2024, and Paul confirmed the arrest was for a small amount of cocaine for Combs' personal use and that Paul accidentally left it in his travel bag. He said neither Combs nor Christina Coram asked him to travel with the cocaine. And Paul recalled telling law enforcement that everything in the bag was his and that his heart dropped when the agent pulled the cocaine out of the bag because he didn't mean to travel with it. Steele then asked Brendan Paul if he would work for a criminal. Brendan Paul responded, "Absolutely not," which, come on, y'all. He's full of shit on that. He knew. Steele asked Paul if he felt indebted to Combs for all the experience he received working for him, and Paul responded, I guess. What do you mean by indebted? And Steele asked if Paul had learned a lot from Combs, and Paul confirmed he had. Steele then asked him if he had good experiences working for Combs, and Paul responded, for the most part. And with that, Steele's cross-examination was over, and prosecutor Christy Slavic, she wasn't done yet. She wanted to do some redirect, and she asked Paul what he believed was taking place during Wild King nights. And Paul responded, there was a lot of sex happening and partying. Paul also confirmed that he was not present in the hotel room, so he did not know definitively if anything illegitimate was happening. And Slavic asked, quote, sitting here today, how do you feel about Mr. Combs? And Paul responded, it's complicated. And with that, he was released from the stand. So Paul leaves, and the prosecutor, she then goes into some text messages that she shows to the jury. These messages were between Diddy and Cassie between March 12th and 14th of 2017. So Combs sent Ventura a hotel room number, and then he told her to call him. Hours later, Ventura texted him, what the fuck, really? I think it'll always be black and white. You threw out all of my shit. In later messages, she said, quote, you best my head in. And then she corrected that by writing, you beat my head in. Combs responded, you're crazy. To which Ventura texted back, let's stop talking. You're dead wrong. Flipping on me for what? In later messages, Combs said, so we're clear this time. We're taking a break. This is really how you want to leave this. You sure? Ventura responded, no, I just don't want to be beat down for being defiant. And Combs wrote back, you started all of this. And Ventura texted him, I guess I'm not down with abuse. It doesn't make sense to me. And she later wrote, you hit me in my head 2 good times. That didn't make me feel good. I know I'm not crazy. Combs responded to that, quote, I'm hurt. You've disrespected so much in the last 12 months. And Ventura responded, wow, you think you're talking to one of your little fuck boys? They can have you with all this shit. I'm not taking it anymore. And later in that conversation, Combs asked Ventura if she had ever gotten numbers from female escorts. Ventura texted Combs on March 18th of 2017, quote, you're at a point in your life where you want to party and have a good time, and I have to focus or I'll never become anything. She also wrote, I had so much fun in Miami, then I realized I opened the door to that being my sole purpose in seeing you. I knew if I said no to it in New York, it would have been a problem. And she continued on with, you treat me like a hooker. And to be honest, you always want to call one and you have one. This hooker has been here for more than 10 years. And Combs responded, wow. And then Ventura responded, please don't play the victim. If you can go to our last messages, that's all you wanted, and that's why I am upset. I love our freak-offs when we both won. And that was the messages that they showed the jury, and at that point, the prosecutors called Joseph Cercillo to the stand, and Cercillo, he was not involved in the case, but he reviewed charts of evidence compiled by the prosecutors, and he confirmed the information on the charts that corresponded with some exhibits. It was kind of a big deal, but one of the things he explained in one of the charts that he showed the jury was they were looking at a chart that included locations, individuals, names, and transportation records associated with different date ranges. He said that 44 entries on the chart range from May of 2021 to August of 2024, and the only woman's name on that chart was Jane. He said before accuser Cassie's lawsuit was filed, most of the locations were at hotels. He said after that lawsuit was filed, none of the locations were at hotels. And Cercillo also said there were 3 of these events after Combs posted an Instagram video on May 19th of 2024. He testified he later reviewed documents related to a hotel stay that Diddy had in Los Angeles in January of 2023. And hotel records showed the room was reserved under the name Joseph Chavez and included a $3,750 charge for damaged furniture. A report from the hotel said there were bodily fluids stained on the wood floor across the entire room and on some furniture. Then the evidence chart referenced some text messages between Sean Combs and Jane, and those messages showed the two coordinating the arrival of 3 men at a hotel. Now, one of those men deposited $1,500 cash at an ATM in Los Angeles in the days following that hotel reservation. The jury also saw a message Combs sent to Jane telling her to send $1,100 to Cowboys for Angels, of course, the escort service we've talked about several times. And he stated in that text message that the money was for flights and an overnight rate. The summary chart also reflected that Jane and Combs stayed at the London Hotel in Los Angeles in April of 2023, and texts between Combs and an entertainer documented in the chart suggested the entertainer would join them at a hotel. After that hotel stay, Combs was charged $1,800 for damaged furniture and linens. A security incident report filed about the damage said there was linen damage and smoking in the room. And the report in part said the room towels appeared to be soaked baby oil, and there is baby oil in the carpet as well. The jury was then shown a note recovered from a phone of Combs' head of security, Fahim Muhammad. This was on April 25th of 2024, and it stated $5,000 PD, Puff Daddy, personal London. The jury saw evidence that Muhammad kept track of some of the spending reimbursements for Combs' personal cash expenses, and they also saw records related to the June 18th, 2024 incident at Jane's home, where they got in the big fight. If you remember, I told you about that a couple of episodes ago. Jonathan Perez, one of Combs' assistants, texted Fahim Muhammad, which incidentally, remember, that's the head of security, texted him and said they needed $600 because, quote, PD is about to go to Jane's house. Later, Perez texted Muhammad and Christina Coram, and he said that he and Combs were on their way to Jane's house. The following day, Coram texted them asking someone to pick up PD ASAP. In that conversation, Perez asked Muhammad to bring cash. And Perez texted Muhammad again on June 20th saying, quote, need $3,500 cash ASAP for his guest. I'm going to take it to her. And with that, because Friday was scheduled to be a short day, the jury was dismissed and court was adjourned for the day. And we are all caught up, folks, with this Sean Diddy Combs trial. And it doesn't look like we got much longer left. Maybe a week to a week and a half. Quickly, I want to thank everyone who has bared with me. If you followed Exposed Scandalous Files of the Elite for a while, I tell all kinds of stories. And ever since this trial started, it's been all about Sean Combs. There's some personal reasons for that, and there's some entertainment reasons for that. And I appreciate all of you bearing with me that maybe you're not as into the Sean Combs case as others. I get it. I'm ready to start talking about other shit as much as y'all are, but I really do appreciate you taking the time to bear with me on this. Thank you so much to my Patreon members who continue to support me. Please check out the Patreon at patreon.com/exposedpodcastfiles. Promise you it's worth every penny that you pay to support what we do at Exposed. None of this is cheap, and every dollar helps in the production costs. Thank you so much. And until next time, for Exposed Scandalous Files of the Elite, I'm your host, Jim Chapman.
Having a life scholarship and being able to afford to go to college made me feel inspired to go.
When I got a life scholarship, it was such a relief.
I knew that I wanted to have an impact. Having a life scholarship through the SC Education Lottery was huge. It gave me the opportunity to make that impact right here at home.
The South Carolina Education Lottery. A better you, a better us, a better South Carolina. Visit sceducationlottery.com/betteryou.